Welcome to the Joy of Language, and specifically the Joy of Basque. My name's Chris Hughes, and I've been a linguist, language lover, language teacher and translator for over 25 years now. I absolutely love languages. And Basque is one of the languages that I find most fascinating. So I hope that this little taster of Basque and some of its, shall we say, eccentricities will interest you. Well, what first attracted me to Basque? Now, you may not know, but Basque is one of the oldest languages spoken in Europe today. That's been continuously spoken pretty much in the area where it's spoken now. It used to be spoken over a much, much wider area, but has been beaten back to the area it's spoken in now, straddling the border between Spain and France, with the Pyrenees in between, with 4 provinces in the Basque Country, and in Spanish Basque Country, and 3 in the French Basque Country. Altogether, there are estimated to be around 650 to 675,000 speakers. So, not spoken by a huge number of people, but I love minority languages, so that's why Basque attracted me so much. And another reason why Basque attracted me is because it's just like a secret code. There we go. There's a first bit of Basque for you. Euskara erabiltzea isilpeko hizkuntza jakitea bezala. It just looks like a secret code, doesn't it? It looks like a jumble of letters. Basque, you see, is not related to any other language currently spoken in Europe. It would have been centuries and centuries ago, and we'll find out just how old it is a bit later. But it has no living relatives now. It is an orphan language, but still thriving, going strong. So what on earth does that secret code mean? Well, it means simply using Basque is like knowing a secret language, and it really is. The word for Basque, you can see there is the first word at the top in green there, Euskara. So even the Basque word for Basque doesn't look like Basque in English. Now, what else is great about Basque? Well, there are so many things, and I'm going to tell you some more a bit later. But first of all, very few languages give you the opportunity to actually become one of the people who actually speak the language, but Basque does. So there we go. Me before learning Basque. I wasn't actually sad, but that was the best picture I could find. Me before learning Basque, and there's me looking very studious, learning Basque, and then finally, ding, I have become an Euskaldun. Now, Euskaldun is actually the Basque word for a Basque. But what it means is you've got Euskal on there, which is a shortened version of Euskara, the word for Basque, and Dun means one who has. So someone who has Basque, someone who speaks Basque. Therefore, just me by speaking Basque now, am a Basque, sort of. But let me have that. Now, I said earlier that Basque was a very old language. Well, you could even, theoretically, according to some people, and this is, there's a bit of legend and myth involved in this, but there is also some historical evidence that Basque could have been spoken in the Neolithic period, in the Stone Age, and may even have been spoken by someone like this chap here, Cro-Magnon man. And why? Well, we know that Basque is an old language that has been spoken in the territory it's spoken now and a much wider area for absolutely centuries and centuries. But there is some evidence in the language itself. Now that there, in Basque, is an aitz, or a rock or stone. And one of the reasons that many philologists and linguists believe that Basque was spoken in the Stone Age is because words for common tools and implements come from aitz, the word for stone. So, for example, aitzur is a hoe, aizkora is an axe, and aisto is a knife, all clearly originating from that word aitz there. So definitely I'm happy to believe, and I want to believe, that Basque was spoken in the Stone Age. Now, Basque is a lovely language, and there are lots of easy things about Basque which people tend to overlook. Basque is pronounced pretty much how it looks, so you don't have any weird combinations of letters. You don't have any funny spellings like in English or French that don't look anything like how they're pronounced. Basque is pronounced pretty much as it looks. There are no genders in Basque, no grammatical genders, so you don't have any masculines or feminines to worry about, so that's a good thing too. However, I'm sort of scratching my head to think of any other points that make Basque simple. This is definitely a myth, I would say. Even I'm going to agree this is a myth. The devil's downfall. Well, the devil, allegedly, according to legend, came up to Earth one day because he wanted to show off. He wanted to show that he could do the impossible. And so he thought, I will learn Basque. That sounds really difficult. So he thought he'd try. Unfortunately, after a year, he'd only managed bai and es, which are the Basque words for yes and no. So with his very long tail between his legs, he gave up and went back to hell in a huff, as we can see here. Now, I don't want to put you off learning Basque because it's a wonderful language, fantastic people. But there are some other downsides. This chap here is a guy called Manuel Larramendi, and he was a Spanish linguist in the late 17th to 18th century, and he published the first Basque grammar in 1759. Now that sounds all well and good, but unfortunately he called it El Imposible Vencido in Spanish, or in Basque, Ezina Egina, which basically means the impossible overcome. The Basque literally means the impossible done, so the same kind of thing. Hopefully not too many people left feeling like that. But aside from the fact that the devil couldn't learn it and the first grammar was called the impossible overcome, there are some rather humorous things about Basque which attracted me and still keep me enjoying the language now. One of them is that the ancient Basques had a week that consisted of only 3 days. Just think of that, 4-day weekend. Actually, I don't think they did, they just had a 3-day week. The first day of the week was called Astelen, which literally means first of the week. Aste is the Basque word for week, len is first, and that is now the word for Monday. Then Astearte was the middle of the week. So Aste, week, as I say, Arte means middle, and that is now the word for Tuesday. And Aste Asken was the end of the week. Aste, again, week, and Asken means last. So that is now the word for Wednesday. Unfortunately, of course, when outsiders came to the Basque country and suggested that it might be appropriate to have another 4 days of the week, the Basques thought, well, okay, and so they came up with one or two things. There were sort of mythological things, like the word for Thursday is similar to many other European languages, so Thor's Day giving Thursday in English, and Jove's Day giving Jeudi and Jueves and so on. So they came up with some mythological things, some sort of astronomical things, but Saturday seemed to be a day when absolutely nothing happened. So Saturday just became in Basque Larumbat, which in Basque means one of the four. Bat is the word for one, lau is four, and the rum bit in the middle is a genitive ending, so it literally means one of four. That's all it was. Poor Saturday. I think Saturday is quite a good day of the week, but clearly nothing mythological or astronomical was happening on Saturday. Now, if you thought linguistically Basque was quite challenging, arithmetically, mathematically, it is quite challenging as well. Numbers in Basque are not based on a base 10 or decimal based system like ours, where you have 10 and 20 is 2 tens and 30 is 3 tens and 40 is 4 tens and so on, but it's vigesimal based. So it's based on 20. Now, it's a bit like when you learn French and you learn that 80 is 80, so 4 20s, literally. So you have to do a bit of mathematics to work it out. And that's pretty much how far French goes, with 90 as well for 90, with your 4 20s and 10. But Basque is much, much worse. Basque takes the bigesimal thing and takes it to its logical conclusion. So, although the first three numbers in Basque are bat, bi, iru, I suppose you could say that B looks a bit, you could recognise that meaning two if you think of by something means two types of things, doesn't it, in English? So, but the other numbers, not so much. And then you have Ammar, which is 10, Amaika, 11, Amabi, you can see B on the end there, is 12. Now that all looks nice and cozy, apart from the fact that obviously they don't look anything like any other language you've seen. However, 20 is ogei. Okay, all well and good so far. But 40 is berrogei, or 220s. 60 is irurogei, or 320s. And 80 is laurogei, or 420s. So if you want to say 30, you take your ogei here, and you add amar, and you put the word for and in between. So you say ogeita amar is 30. 50 then is berrogeita amar, literally 2 20s and 10. So maths, which is not my strong point, I have to admit, does come into play a bit when you're working out Basque numbers, particularly when they look so odd to anyone outside the Basque-speaking community. Now, I said odd, it gets even more odd, because history and myth also has it, and there may be a strong element of myth in this. There is also some real history. The real history is that Frankish troops, so the Germanic peoples who lived in the area that's now France, in 778, led by the Emperor Charlemagne, were returning to the territory of modern-day France across the Roncevaux Pass, or called Orreaga in Basque. They'd just sacked the Basque city of Pamplona and destroyed all the city walls, so the Basques were a bit annoyed about that. And so while the Frankish troops were crossing back over that pass across the Pyrenees in 778, the Basques came and absolutely wiped them out. Their rear was completely destroyed. And you can see from that picture at the top there, that's the one next to the heavily bearded Charlemagne, is some bearded Frankish troops. Now, why am I going on about beards? Because as the Basques were busy wiping out the Frankish troops, they were pointing at them and shouting "Bizarra, bizarra," just like that. Probably a lot of other noise around at the time, but they were shouting that. And that's because, not because they were thinking they all looked like a load of odd people, but because the Franks tended to be bearded. These Germanic tribes tended to have beards, whereas the Basques traditionally were clean-shaven, so they were shouting "Bizarra," which actually means beard in Basque, because they were curious. The French then borrowed that into their language, and it came into medieval French as bizarre, meaning odd, singular, strange, and it was then borrowed into English. So, as legend would have it, again, I have to caveat several things with that. As legend would have it, the word for bizarre comes from Basque. So Basque has actually given English a word, quite a common word, although it did come via French. Now, more oddity coming up. The father of the nation, the father of the Basque nation. I put a question mark at the end because some people disagree with his politics, so I didn't want to be definitive about him being father of the nation, but I shall explain why I have called him that. This chap's name is Sabino de Aranagoiri, and he was a Basque nationalist politician, late 19th century into the early 20th, and a prolific inventor of words and symbols for the Basque nation. He loved the Basque country, he loved the Basque language. He didn't actually learn it from birth, he learnt it as an adult, but he became very passionate about it, and because he was a senior Basque nationalist politician, even founded the Basque Nationalist Party, the PNV, he was in a good position to decide how the language should shape up. And so he actually invented a lot of words, particularly to do with Basque culture and national sentiment, that are still used today. One of them is the word Euskadi. Now, it's nowadays generally written with an S instead of a Z, but Sabino de Arana had this idea that the Basques were sort of descended from sun gods, and the word for sun in Basque is Eguzki, which is spelt with a Z, Eguzki. And so he felt that it was a country of people descended from the sun god. D at the end there, the DI, was a suffix that he completely invented by himself. He invented lots of other suffixes that sort of meant a country. So it's a country of the sun god people, and that is the Basque country today. It tends not to be used very much as the word for the Basque country nowadays because it has some nationalist connotations. But still, it is still used, as I say, it tends to be with an S rather than a Z nowadays. He also came up with Ikurriña, which is this, the Basque flag. The Basque flag, the red, white and green Basque flag, which was actually modelled on the British Union flag, but with Basque colours. And he called this flag the Ikurriña. Ikur is a sign or symbol, so that sort of makes sense. The Iña bit was something in Sabino de Arana's head, only he knows what that meant. But Ikurriña is the name for the Basque flag still today. And yet, Sabino de Arana completely invented it. One man invented it. He also, had a flag, so you needed a national anthem as well. So he came up with an Ereserkia, which is his word for the national anthem. Trust me, you can't see it, it's very tiny, but that is the start of the Basque national anthem. Er, at the beginning, the ER, is a prefix that he created out of the word Herri in Basque, Herri, which is the word for nation, people, sort of country. So the Er bit is to do with nation and country. The ki bit at the end was another one of his suffixes that sort of just meant a thing that had something to do with the rest of the letters in the word, if you see what I mean. So it's a thing that is used to sing about the nation, a national anthem. And he also, this is possibly one of the most peculiar things, he also invented a number of Isenak. Now that word is a perfectly normal and very ancient Basque word that he didn't invent. Isenak means names. Now he decided that Castilian Spanish names were not entirely appropriate for Basques, for Basque-speaking Basques to be baptized with. So he changed them. So, for example, Pedro became Kepa. And this was a completely, I stress again, complete invention of this man Sabino de Arana. Pedro changed to Kepa. Kepa comes from Kepa, which is Aramaic equivalent of Peter. Even more odd looking this. Sabino de Arana's brother was called Luis, but again, Luis was much too Castilian Spanish looking. So Luis becomes Coldovica, sometimes shortened to Coldo. And Coldovica, it looks like he just made that up off the top of his head. Thought, what should we change Luis to? Coldovica sounds good. It wasn't actually. There was method to his, I won't say madness, but I'm sure he wasn't. This came from Old German Chlodovig, which gave birth to Ludwig in German, which is the equivalent of Luis and Louis and similar names. So there was sense to Coldovica. But he didn't just keep it to male names, oh no, also female names. Garbiñe, which is a popular Basque name, Basque woman's name. Garbiñe comes from the adjective garbi, which is the first bit without the nye on the end. Garbi means clean or pure, and that was the equivalent of Maria de la Concepción or Conchi in Spanish, being clean or pure. And nekane. Neke means suffering, pain, so that was his equivalent of dolores, which means pains in Spanish. So all those things came to the Basque country thanks to Sabino de Arana, and all of them are still in use today. So, Having given you that walk through some of the fascinating things about Basque and some of the interesting quirks of Basque, I thought it was only fair to end with a short conversation in Basque, Euskarazko elkarrizketa bat, or a Basque conversation. So, here we go. Now, I did say earlier that one of the easy things about Basque, and I was clutching at straws trying to find them, but one of the easy things about Basque is the fact that it is pronounced pretty much how it looks. Now, it's not immediately obvious to English speakers how it's pronounced by how it looks, but I'll explain that now. So, that line says, Kaisho, ni krisnais, sunor sara, kaisho. You'll notice the X is pronounced like a sh, as in sure. And kaisho means hello, hello. Ni krisnais means I am Chris. Now, I am is ni nice. You'll notice, like German often does, the verb gets sent to the end. So it's not ni nice Chris, like yo soy Chris in Spanish. It's ni Chris nice. I am Chris. But ni nice is I am. Su is you. And you'll notice that the Z is not pronounced like a Spanish fefeo, a Z, but more like the Andalus, or more like the Latin American S. So it's more like an English S. So su means you. Nor sara. Su nor sara. The R's, you notice, are sort of a tap, a bit like the Spanish r, r. So just rolling the tip of your tongue. Su nor sara means who are you? Su sara, you are. So ni nice, I am. Su sara, you are. And the chap who answers replies, Egunon. Egunon means good day. So another way of saying hello, slightly posher way than kaisho. Egun is day, on is good. And you'll notice good goes after, so the adjective is going after. Ni, we've got ni nice again there, so I am. Ni kepa, nice. And you'll remember we were just talking about Sabino de Arana inventing all these names. Kepa is the Basque version of Pedro. Ser modus. Ser modus. Ser modus is the most common way of saying, how are you? It's equivalent of ¿qué tal in Spanish. In fact, it's literally the equivalent of ¿qué tal in Spanish. If you think, what does ¿qué tal mean literally? It means what? Like. What sort of like? And ser modus means the same. Ser actually means what. And modus is in a way. So in what way, literally. But ser modus, equivalent to ¿qué tal? How are you? And Chris, that's me, replies oso ondo, which means very good, very well. Oso is very, can also mean whole. Eskerrik asko. Eskerrik asko is thank you very much. Thank you very much. Eskerrik is thanks. Asko, much. So the same as saying muchas gracias in Spanish. You'll notice, or hopefully you'll notice, that the S's are slightly more so slightly more sibilant and slightly more hissed than the Z sound. So oso ondo, eskerrik asko. Eta zu, eta means and, eta zu, and you. And kepa, Pedro, replies ongi, which is another way of saying ondo, ongi, fine, well. Nongoa sara. You'll notice sara there we've seen before means you are. Nongoa means where from. Nongoa. Non, just the first three letters, is where. Nongoa is where from. So, where are you from? Nongoa sara. And I'm being honest, I'm not going to pretend to be Basque, even though I'm an Euskaldun, so I am, technically. I will say ingelesa nice. Ingelesa nice. Nice, we saw earlier, means I am. Ingelesa means English. As with many other countries, when they say Ingelesa, they often mean British, so it could be interchangeable English-British. You'll notice that the G before the E there, it's not pronounced anything like the Spanish G. It's like an English G all the time. Always a hard G. Ingelesa nice, and you have to have that E between. You can't say Inglesa because Basque doesn't like that. It doesn't like having G and L as a consonant cluster together, so it slaps a vowel in the middle. Ingelesa nice. Baina euskara ikasten dut. Baina euskara ikasten dut. Hopefully you recognize the word euskara, which is Basque. Baina means but. You'll notice that the N sounds a bit like an N with a wavy line with a tilde over it in Spanish. Ny. And that's because it's got an I before it. Now in Basque, if an N has an I before it or immediately after it, then it's pronounced as a ny. So baina, but, euskara, Basque, ikasten dut. Ikasten dut means I am learning. I am learning Basque. The dut bit is saying that I am doing the action. The ikasten is learning. So it's a bit like a gerund in Spanish, a bit like saying aprendiendo. It's a bit like saying estoy aprendiendo euskara or vascuence. And Kepa, who's being very complimentary to me, says oso ondo hitz egiten duzu. Now we saw oso ondo earlier on when I was saying I'm very well. Oso ondo therefore means very well. Hitz egiten duzu means you speak it. So you speak it very well. Oso ondo hitz egiten duzu. And you'll notice just as ni Chris nice and ni Kepa nice, the verb goes at the end. And we saw dut in the previous sentence there, ikasten dut, and I told you that meant I am doing the action. Duzu means you are doing the action. So you are speaking. So it's a bit like saying estás hablando in Spanish. Hitz egiten duzu. Oso ondo hitz egiten duzu. Ikusi arte. Now that's a way of saying goodbye. That's basically see you later. Ikusi arte. Arte means until. So like hasta in Spanish, jusqu'à in French. Ikusi is see. See as in with your eyes. So ikusi arte until we see each other. The same as hasta la vista in Spanish. And I reply, just to be a bit different, agur, which is goodbye. Agur, bye, the equivalent of adios. Gero arte, and you'll see arte is in there again. Arte meaning until. Gero means then or later. So that's a bit like saying hasta luego in Spanish. Gero arte, until later. So there we go. A Basque conversation, which shows you various aspects of Basque. There's obviously a lot more grammar to learn, but hopefully that conversation has got you interested enough and inspired enough to want to learn more about Basque and the Basques. So I'll say to you now, eskerrik asko for watching and listening. I hope you've enjoyed watching, and as I say, I hope it inspires you to learn a bit more about this fascinating language.